Former National Security Advisor, Ambassador Robert O'Brien, who wrote a national review this week on the need for a bipartisan shipbuilding program. Good morning, Mr. Ambassador. Great to have you back.
Good morning. Merry Christmas, Hugh.
Merry Christmas to you. Mr. Ambassador, the Houthis continue to fire at everything that moves in the Straits. What ought the United States to do?
Well, we've got to start deterring our adversaries and defeating them in battle. And so we lack the political will to do that. We've got a great Navy. It's shrinking. We need to rebuild it. But even with a great Navy, if you don't use it, if you don't have the political will to defeat our adversaries, and you just want to be a global policeman and have, quote, presence and not actually fight and win wars, it doesn't do you any good. So instead of sitting back and batting, trying to block shots, we need to go after and take out the shooter. And we're spending a lot of money and a lot of expensive anti-aircraft missiles to shoot down Houthi weapons, and cheap drones and cheap cruise missiles, using expensive anti-aircraft missiles on our ships. We got to take those ships and put them off of the shore and defeat the Houthis are a third world army. We should take our ships, put them offshore, and defeat them.
You just made me think of something. They're sending up a $600 special made in Iran, and we're firing off, I don't know what our ballistic missile defense missiles cost, but they're a lot more expensive than the Radio Shack missile.
Well, some are $100 million. So it's pretty ridiculous.
Well, okay. Tell me what you would advise President Trump if you were back in the corner office in the West Wing and he was back in the Oval about the dozens of attacks on American bases in Syria and Iraq and the region.
Well, look, we'd restore deterrence with Iran, and keep in mind, whether it's the Houthis or Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq or Hezbollah in Lebanon or Hamas in Gaza, it's all Iran. These guys wouldn't shoot a BB gun without permission from the Quds Force and the IRGC. So we got to restore deterrence with Iran, and President Trump did this. He was ready on day one. He'd be ready on day one in a year from now to put America back on top and to tell our adversaries to knock this stuff off. And as far as rebuilding the Navy, President Trump's a builder. I recall him in the Oval Office calling in naval architects and senior admirals and asking what was wrong with the shipbuilding program and trying to get to the bottom of why things were over budget and well past their deadlines. And he did it because he was a builder. He knew what he was doing. He also understood the value of offensive weapons. So the hypersonic weapon systems that we need to deter China and Russia, they basically been canceled by Obama. President Trump called them super duper missiles at his rallies and forced the Pentagon to start building them. So, but again, all these systems are great, but if you don't have the political will to use them to go take out the Houthis and teach them a lesson, teach the Iranians a lesson and their proxies, nothing's going to change.
Now, you have the piece in National Interest about the need for a bipartisan shipbuilding approach. Our friend Captain Hendricks has a piece in the Wall Street Journal on the same thing. My question, how soon could we surge submarine and other vessel production? Because it doesn't seem to me that we have the capacity to do this.
We don't. Our industrial bases dropped to dangerous levels. By some estimates, the Chinese have 200 times, keep in mind, 200 times the capacity we have to build ships. So we've got half of our submarines, which are our most deadly weapons and platforms against the Chinese and Russians, half of them are tied up alongside waiting for maintenance because we don't have the shipyards to maintain them. We don't have the workers, the HVAC guys and the welders and the electricians. They don't exist to repair these ships. So we've got to surge that capacity. We can do it, but it'll take a couple of years, and we got to start now. So we can't wait for President Trump to come back and fix it. We got to start now, and we got to do it on a bipartisan basis.
Last question, Mr. Ambassador. A lot of people doubt that President Trump could get the ATeam to join him in the administration. I tell them I think Ambassador O'Brien would go back. I think Secretary Pompeo would back. I think DNI Ratcliffe would go back. I think Ambassador Grinnell would go back. I think a lot of people would go back. What do you think?
Oh, and people like Chad Wolf and Keith Kellogg and Chris Miller, our former acting Secretary of Defense at the end of the administration. There are a lot of great people. Dan Brulette, the Secretary of Energy, was, I thought, one of the best cabinet members. Bernhardt at Interior. There are Ben Carson. There are all kinds of A-team players that have been confirmed by the Senate and have been governors and senators. And then you've got folks like Tom Cotton and Mike Waltz and Mike Gallagher Joni Ernst and others in the Senate and House that would serve. So there's going to be an A-team because people understand the threats that the country faces, and the Democrats this is all personality driven for them. The Republicans believe in saving the country and sacrificing for our freedom and liberty, and that they're going to serve President Trump or whoever the next GOP president is. They're going to put together an A-team, and I think President Trump's going to put together a terrific team if he's the nominee and ultimately elected president. Although the Colorado Supreme Court, apparently has a different view of that. So.
You're a pretty good lawyer, you and Judge Larson. I think I've been practicing law since '83. I went to law school in 1980. I've been teaching since 1996. This is the dumbest decision I've ever seen. I mean, just out and out dumb.
As a diplomat who spent time overseas, not just as a lawyer, but we try and make sure that we had democracy and the rule of law overseas. Can you imagine now going to some African government that's just done a coup, or some authoritarian that's taken a political prisoner, or their political opponent, and put him in prison, and we're going to go lecture them, and they're just going to look at us and laugh and hand us the Colorado Supreme Court decision and say, you guys are a one-party state, or your regime will select a candidate it wants to run against. We're doing the same thing here. It's heartbreaking for people around the world to watch this and see it happen in America.
I had not even thought of that. I'm just so focused on how stupid it is, but you're right. It does have real-time, real-world effects. Ambassador Robert O'Brien, thank you. Great piece in the national interest. Follow Ambassador O'Brien on X at Robert C. O'Brien. Robert C. O'Brien. And when former President Trump, and if former President Trump returns to the White House, I expect the ambassador to be back with him in some capacity. I don't know that. Haven't asked the former president that, but I expect it.